Y'all, welcome back to another episode of Growth Reframed. We are so happy that you're here. The last couple weeks, we've talked all about toxic beliefs, and we actually broke that thing down into 2 episodes, and I'm telling you, it could have been 15. So if you haven't listened, go ahead and head back and give it a listen. But this week, we want to talk all about unplugging.
We sure do, because we recently had the opportunity to do just that. We have recently come back from San Diego, one of our very favorite places to be, and it was a great experience. And most importantly, we got a chance to unplug, disconnect, kind of recharge for real life.
That's right. And in unplugging, I'm just going to
snap.
adjust your mic because guess what? We're real people here. We're recording, but I want to make sure it's correct for you.
Thanks.
Okay, so yes, we got a chance to go to San Diego. It's by far one of my favorite places in the country. Mm-hmm. If you haven't had the chance to go, I would highly recommend it. You can, if you're from California, I'm sorry, but you can skip everywhere else in California and just go to San Diego. You'll be good. And if you're from somewhere else over there, you can certainly message me and tell me to check it out, and I'll be glad to. But yeah, I think for us, we've talked recently about just feeling strung out, feeling burnout. We call it the personal growth burnout. And so when we've been talking about that and doing all the things we're doing, we work a full-time 9 to 5. We're owning a company. We're doing this. We're doing now video. We're trying to bring all those things in. And it's hard, y'all. It's a slog. A lot of times I feel like it's just a slog. And most people I talk about out there, most people in my life are just some of y'all. It's like you can't put a finger on what it is, but yeah, it feels a little bit uneasy right now. And there's a lot of craziness going on. So we realize every year now, when we get a chance to go to this, we usually go to a conference, and every year we get to go do that, just how important it is to reset, to get us out of our normal cycle that we're in. And usually by that point, we've, most of the time it's in March, we've had a few months to build up some funk in our backlogs that we need to clear out and just have a chance to connect, unwind, and just be. And that's what we want to get into today.
Yeah, and especially if you're living in a colder climate where spring hasn't come quite yet, this could be even more real for you, because sometimes that need to unplug, to disengage, for me at least, will happen as the weather is kind of nasty and you're just like, it's that seasonal depression type mode that you get into.
Seasonal defective disorder or whatever it's called.
Affective.
Affective, thank you.
But I mean, you might feel it a little bit more, that need to just kind of unplug and reset yourself, just because of the time of year it is. We're so close to spring, but even still, there's a lot of just rainy, yucky days, at least where we are, and it can just feel so monotonous and so like, I'm just ready for something new, something different. But anyway, back to the whole San Diego thing. We are lucky enough that we get to go for business and for pleasure. So we go to the Social Media Marketing World Conference every year, and that is such a great experience for us. We learn so much, but every year we make it a priority that even though we're going there to work and to learn, that we also take the time to be together as a couple, to be together to have fun, to be together to be childless again for a few days, to have just that enjoyable connection time, because it's so rare for us. And to have that time to just be us is so fabulous, because it just doesn't happen. I mean, you guys know it's life. It's all the things you have to do day in, day out, and you're just desperate for unplugging. And yeah, you might get a few moments here or there each day, but it's not nearly enough. Like, I try to sneak away and, read for a little bit every night, but yes, I'm unplugging, but I'm not unplugging to the extent of like actually letting go of some things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to break it down too, because like what I mean by unplugging. And so like when I think about it, and you can tell me if you think different, I think about breaking yourself up from the normal routine. So like unplugging from the normal task of your life. A lot of times it can come in the form of like social media, for example, like unplugging from technology, or I'm not going to do that. Right now and maybe that is a habit. I think it's a habit for most of us, but I'm talking about breaking up your normal routine, the never-ending Groundhog Day that you tend to live in, that we all tend to live in, the hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it. And that's really what we're trying to talk about, is just like breaking out of it. So whether you're single, whether you have a partner, whatever, we fall into patterns of how we're living, and this gives us an opportunity to get away. but we'll talk a little bit more about our experience. But I also want to talk and just state that whether that voice in your head is saying, well, I can't get away right now. I don't have the time. I don't have the, vacation time. I don't have the funding to do that. Totally get it. But just thinking about ways while you're listening to this that you can break up your normal routine will be immensely helpful to you when you're trying to do that. And so when we get to San Diego, like Meg said, we get the chance to work in some fun. We get the chance to work in work. So we leading into it. So the last year, and I think we had done it twice. We went to Disneyland. And so, yes, we're officially Disney adults now. And if you don't know what that is, you can Google it, but that's us. Going to Disney all the time. And I had never gone to Disney for like most of my life. And then when me and you first went was when we were in San Diego. We went without kids. And a lot of people I've talked to about going were like, why did you go? Why did you go to Disney without your kids? And I'm like, have you ever gone to Disney without your kids? That's why I went to Disney without my kids.
Because no one's whining at you.
Right. And it gives you a chance to just, again, break things up. Yeah, the conference and all that is serious. So it gives me a chance to be a kid again. It gives me a chance to have fun, to go on a roller coaster with you, to go on fun rides, to play games. We got a chance to be in the car for an hour because it's about an hour and a half drive from San Diego to Disneyland. We got a chance to just sit and be and talk and listen to music and sing and unwind where we don't get that right now. And like for us, y'all might be thinking, and because I thought it myself, like we work together, we do this podcast and video together, we're doing a whole nother side hustle together, we were raising kids together, we're together all the freaking time. So what are you talking about needing to, unplug or connect or whatever? And what I'm saying is proximity to your partner, proximity to whoever you're trying to connect with in your life doesn't mean community. It doesn't mean connection. Just because you're near that person doesn't mean connection. And so for us, we really knew, I think going into this too, and you could speak to it, the fact that we both individually needed it for ourselves, and then we both needed it as a couple for ourselves. So regardless of how you're looking at it, we needed it, and we needed it big time.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was just thinking as you were talking, like, for me, there's almost two different unplugs. Like unplug from everything individually by myself, meaning at night I'm laying in bed, I stop talking to you. It's the whole thing about like everybody's on their phone like next to each other. You kind of get that image in your head of like how that is these days because it's true. But that to me, like that vegging out, that disconnecting is sort of unplugging. There's a place and a time for that. I really believe it's totally okay to ignore the person that you're next to in a moment that you need to do that. Not forever, not always, but there are certain instances, like if you've been having a moment and you just need some time at the end of the day, you are entitled to lay in your bed and not do anything except lounge on your phone or stare straight at the TV. That's cool. And then there's the unplugging together. And that to me is totally different. That's like a break from our real life, like in a bigger sense. Like the individual thing is great, but sometimes I need to just be with you to build our relationship, to strengthen that relationship. And that's where you're talking about, like, it just felt like a time that we needed that because we were, as you said, always together, but not necessarily feeling the vibes because it's just exhausting to do all the things. And that's, it's okay. But at some point you got to stop doing the things and actually make us or your relationships or your things super important to you and put those back on the pedestal for a little bit.
Right. And how it works for me individually is, for example, like we've gone to that conference now, I think that was our 6th or 7th year going to that conference. And so a lot of the information seemed like it was like things I'd heard before, but just getting out of my routine here and getting to a place where I could be fully engaged in something that wasn't with distractions really opened me up. It's like I've heard a lot of these things before, but I almost saw things under a new lens in a new way. Even though I'd heard it before, it's like I could take the blinders off of my normal day-to-day slog and really see the potential of things without the demands of my day-to-day life. I know for me, like, I know we're talking specifically about like our trip, but I think for your own life, I felt last weekend, I just felt like, man, I'm on social media all the freaking time because like I'm trying to, we're trying to be honest, we're trying to build a brand. We're trying to like bring video. We're trying to do all these different things. And that brings me more onto social media. And so I just felt tired. I came into the weekend feeling exhausted with the demands of just trying to live life and be on. I mean, it sounds silly, but it can be daunting to be on social media, to just constantly be scrolling and like looking at different apps and just being on your phone at all. And I came to you Sunday and I was just like, hey, just hold me accountable for this. I'm not going to be on social media today.
The literal unplug.
The literal unplug. And so it's a perfect example. And it's the reason I mention it is because it's the easiest possible thing for you to do. I'm not saying don't have your phone, because I get we all have like jobs or things. We have people that have to get in touch with us. Cool, that's fine. You could maybe try to limit your phone and just let people know if you have a partner or someone else that you live with or whatever, that you can call them if they really need to get in touch with you. But if that's a thought that you have that you can't do that, cool, you can have your phone, but maybe think about not watching YouTube for the weekend or for a day or for an evening even, if you think that's too much. Cut off from social media, because I can tell you for me, I didn't realize, I guess I did because I decided to take the break, but I didn't really realize how daunting it was becoming and how much it was just like taking over my mental psyche and everything else by taking it in all the time. But when I did it on Sunday, I didn't miss it, one. And believe it or not, y'all, when I got on Monday, there was really not much that I had missed, that I needed to like be there constantly looking every few minutes, which I can fall into the cycle of doing, to be like, oh, wow, do I need to respond to someone? Did someone comment? Do I need to see what this person and that person's doing on the internet? There's just ideas in my head that I have. So that's one example of things you can do. Could you think of other examples of things where if people can't just completely unplug, ways they can mix things up in their life?
I mean, for us, one of the things we do is just do a weekend where we pretty much stay at home. We do only the things that we have to do. Like right now, it's soccer season for the kids. So great. Obviously, we're going to go to soccer. We're not going to...
Dang soccer.
We're not going to take them away from something they love. But we'll do soccer and we'll do church. And I'm telling you, there is not much else other than that. Because as a family, we might need to unplug. We might need to just spend some time together. And some of that will be spent as a family. And some of that will be spent where all four of us as individuals go off and do our own personal unplugging, our own personal time of reflection, our own personal things. Like I might go read a book because that's what I like to do. Brian, you're probably not going to go do that because that's not what you're doing right now. You do like to read, but if you're unplugging, you're not going to go pick up the type of book that you like to read, which is more personal growth, business kind of books, because that's not a relaxation. That's not an unplug that kind of re-engages your brain to be in the work mode. That's not super helpful in the context of this conversation. So you might go and do something totally different. You might go play on your phone, even though that's not the actual literal unplug, but for you, it's unplugging from this.
Sure.
And our son will go play video games and our daughter will, watch PBS Kids or whatever the case may be, whatever you like to do that kind of takes you just out of the, like having to be on all the time, having to do all of these extra things. Like my favorite weekends sometimes are the weekends where we really don't do much just because we're all able to kind of come together when we want to be together, and then also just guilt-free do the things that we like. And that just is an easy, simple thing that I'm thinking of. That's a great way to just kind of take yourself out of it. Stop doing the work on the weekends unless it's absolutely necessary for a weekend. It doesn't mean you never work a weekend again. It means maybe this weekend is the weekend that you choose. That kind of stuff is super helpful for us.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I think it brings awareness to the fact that we a lot of times aren't even consciously aware that this is happening. We feel tired, we feel exhausted, or we feel just kind of strung out, but we don't really know why. And a lot of times it's with easy, simple tweaks you can do that. But like you said, it needs to happen once. It needs to happen like over a weekend. It needs to, like, you could carve out a little bit of time to make it happen. It doesn't need to be every weekend, and it doesn't need to be for all time. Because I know as humans, we like to stretch it out to be like, well, I couldn't possibly do that because my kids have sports and I have this and I have this commitment after and I have that.
We do
yeah,
too.
Cool. So do we. I mean, by the way, we do. But also, I just want to say that it does need to be thought out sometimes. Like, it needs to be planned. Like, if you knew that, like, we knew that trip was coming, but before that trip, we had planned to take a whole day off, and then I was sick, throwing up, like, with the flu. It didn't happen. And so we did plan. My point is it's going to be difficult. It's difficult to try to do things out of the norm. It's difficult to recognize that things are wrong and then decide to make a sacrifice and take a step to allow it to happen. But I know for us too, when the days are semi-nice out, we get outside and we go for a walk because we know that like being out in the sunlight helps us. Yeah. I don't know what it is for all the people out there, but there's got to be something that you can do to break you outside the norm. And again, I think it's, to your point, a conscious awareness of the fact of like, okay, what's taking your own pulse almost? Like, what's going on? Like, how am I feeling? How am I feeling? Okay, and really, like, don't brush it off. Like, how am I really feeling about how things are going right now? And what are some ways, rather than thinking about all the reasons why it can't happen, what are some real simple ways that I could do it once? And it can be as small as buying yourself some Starbucks. It can be as small as going outside and just sitting in the sunlight. It could be as simple as calling up someone that you love that you've been meaning to reach out to and just chat. All of those things sound so simple, and they're things that I don't usually do. But I don't know what it is for y'all. But there's probably something out there to tell you that, you know, the feeling that you need to disconnect, because this life, like I led this episode off with, it's a slog. It's a grind. I mean, I've said the word slog like 3 times. Now I've said it 4. But it's a grind. It's hard. It's difficult. And there's so many things out there that can pull you down and pull you in. So you got to be aware of the fact that you might need a little respite from that. And how can you work that in? That's the point I want to hammer in here. What is the simplest way? Don't go to the hardest way. You're like, I'm not going to fly to San Diego today. No, totally get it. I mean, we typically don't either. It's just something to mention, because when we did that, we realized how helpful it was. But what is a way today that you can work something in? And don't think about time. Like, don't think about the thing that's going to suck the most time. I know time's the most valuable, finite resource we seem to all have. But what could it be for you? And if you can answer that, and if you'll be willing to try it, I think you'll see for your life that it will make a difference in the short term. And then the long term, you can plan out further out the things that might take more time or things you would like to do that you've been putting off. But for the short term, just give yourself that small win. Give yourself that little scratch of the surface to see how you might feel if you looked at it in a different way.
So this week, wherever you're listening to this, we encourage you to just take a little time. Take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes. Write a list of a few things that you know would help you feel reset, recharged, relaxed. And do one of those things, even if you only have a few minutes. Maybe the following week, you'll find a few more minutes, and then a few more minutes the week after that. Just start to really put that in the back of your head, like, this is something that I want to do, and write down the ways that you can try to do it, because there are individual ways for all of us to go ahead and get that disconnect, that recharge. I don't even remember the name of the title of this episode right now. It's blinking. Unplugging. Thank you. I was like, there is a word here that I am looking for.
Disconnect, recharge, unplug.
Guys, go get yourself unplugged, even for 5 minutes. We will see you here next week. Thank you so much for listening. We love y'all.